Have you ever found yourself in a financial discussion where, even after explaining your investment strategy, defending your spending choices, and justifying your money decisions, you walked away feeling like you lost? Have you ever felt that knot in your throat when discussing salary negotiations? As if every word about money had pushed you further away from your own financial strength? Perhaps you're surrounded by people who speak loudly about their investments, interrupt your financial plans, mock your money choices, and dominate conversations with financial arrogance, disguised as wealth confidence. And maybe, deep down, you believed that staying financially silent was a sign of economic weakness, that not defending your financial decisions was surrender, that not reacting to money provocations was losing. But what if I told you that all of this is a financial illusion? That true wealth power has never been in money words, but in their absence. Nietzsche, one of the most misunderstood thinkers in history, saw something about power that few have the courage to admit, and this applies perfectly to money. Those who talk too much about wealth reveal too much. Those who need to convince others of their financial success are already at a financial disadvantage. The world teaches us that we must fight financially, explain our investment choices, defend our money decisions as if every financial conversation were a battle for economic truth. But nature proposes something different, more subtle, more lethal, and infinitely more intelligent path to wealth. Nietzsche believed that silence is not just an absence of financial noise, but an overwhelming presence. Financial silence, it forces others to confront their own money insecurities. This video is for you who constantly feels financially ignored, economically overshadowed, monetarily invalidated. For you who leaves money conversations with the feeling that no one really understood your financial vision. For you who is tired of being the financially easy target, the economically nice one, the one who tries to keep financial peace, while others take advantage of your monetary.com. Perhaps you have confused your financial silence with economic submission, but today I will show you that financial silence can be your most powerful wealth weapon, and that true financial victory does not come from winning money arguments, but from never needing to enter them. Get ready to see financial silence in a new light, not as an absence of economic response, but as the definitive wealth response. Let us dive into Nietzsche's ideas and discover how to master any financial situation without saying a single word about money. Why do we feel such a need to respond financially? To rebut investment criticism? To correct money misconceptions? To prove that our financial decisions are right? Because deep down, we have been conditioned to believe that financial truth must be defended tooth and nail. That if we remain silent about money, we are allowing others to win the economic conversation. But Nietzsche saw this financial desperation as a symptom of our deepest weakness, the fear of appearing economically weak. And behind this money fear lies the ego of Friedrich, financial ego that cannot stand being questioned about wealth, that confuses financial disagreement with economic attack, and that turns any money conversation into a battlefield. Nietzsche said that most people do not seek financial truth when they argue about money. They seek economic power. They seek to reaffirm their wealth beliefs. Not because these beliefs are financially solid, but because if they are economically shaken, everything crumbles. Financial argumentation, in this sense, is not a tool of money. Wisdom it is defensive armor. A desperate cry from the ego to maintain control of the wealth narrative. And what does this mean financially? That when you feel compelled to justify your investment choices, to prove your financial point, you have already entered their money game and lost. Because the simple need to justify your economic position shows that you are still trapped in the desire to be financially accepted, economically validated, monetarily understood. Nietzsche called this the financial herd morality, the behavior of those who live under the money expectations of others, who want to be seen as financially good, economically correct, monetarily just. But this quest for financial approval is exactly what keeps you economically weak. True financial strength, Nietzsche said, lies not in convincing others of your wealth wisdom, but in not needing to do so financially. It is in holding your economic vision, even in the face of financial laughter, money, criticism, wealth, rejection. It is in being financially misunderstood and remaining economically unshaken. What he proposes to us is a type of financial power that is not measured in monetary victories, but in economic mysteria, wealth power that comes from the ability to remain calm while everyone around you is losing financial control, a money power that grows when you stop reacting to economic provocations. If you really want to win financially, you need to understand this. The game of money discussion is economic theater, and the first to stand up to financially act is already lost. Nietzsche knew that the reactive mind about money is a financially subjugated mind. The observing mind about wealth, that is the economically dangerous one, because it is above the need to prove anything financial to anyone. Why do we feel such an overwhelming need to explain our financial decisions? To justify our investment choices? To defend our money strategies as if our economic worth depended on others? Financial approval? Nietzsche understood this desperation with brutal clarity. He saw that behind every financial argument, every economic justification, every money explanation lies the same thing: a fragile ego that cannot tolerate being financially questioned. But here's what Nietzsche discovered about money. Conversations. Most people do unseek financial truth when they argue about wealth. They seek economic validation. They need others to confirm that their money choices are correct. Not because these choices are actually sound, but because their entire financial identity is built on external approval. Think about it. When someone challenges your investment strategy, your spending habits, or your money priorities, what happens inside you? There's an immediate urge to defend, to explain, to prove, but this urge reveals something crucial. You are still emotionally attached to others' opinions about your wealth. This is what Nietzsche called the herd morality applied to money. Living your financial life according to others' economic expectations, wanting to be seen as financially responsible, economically smart, monetarily successful according to standards you didn't even create. But every time you feel compelled to financially justify yourself, you reveal that you are still trapped in what Nietzsche saw as the greatest weakness: the need for approval. The moment you start explaining your money decisions, you've already lost financial power. Because true financial strength doesn't need to be explained. Real wealth doesn't require justification. Authentic economic power simply exists, without apology, without explanation, without the desperate need for financial validation from others. Nietzsche observed that this financial desperation comes from a deeper problem. We've been taught to believe that financial transparency equals economic honesty, that explaining our money choices shows financial maturity. But actually, the opposite is true. The financially powerful understand something the economically weak never learn. Mystery creates respect. Silence about money creates intrigue. Not explaining your wealth decisions forces others to respect your financial boundaries. When you constantly explain your economic choices, you're essentially asking for permission to live your financial life. You're saying, please approve of my money decisions. Please validate my financial choices. Please tell me I'm economically acceptable. But the wealthy don't ask for financial permission. They don't seek economic approval. They make money decisions and move forward, regardless of others' opinions about their wealth strategies. Nietzsche saw this clearly. The argument itself is already a form of financial defeat, because the moment you engage in economic argumentation, you've accepted that others have the right to judge your money choices. You've given them financial power over you, the financially superior individual, what Nietzsche might call the economic. Übermensch doesn't argue about money because they do when you need to. Their financial presence speaks for itself. Their wealth results demonstrate their economic wisdom. Their money silence creates more power than their financial words ever could. This financial ego death is necessary for wealth mastery. You must kill the part of you that needs economic validation, that seeks financial approval, that fears monetary judgment. Because as long as you're emotionally attached to others' opinions about your money, you'll never be truly financially free. But how do we transcend this financial desperation? How do we move from needing economic approval to commanding financial respect through silence? The answer lies in understanding what Nietzsche called the Übermensch but applied to money. Nietzsche did not write for the financially weak. He wrote for the few who have the courage to look within, confront their own economic misery, and transform it into wealth strength. For him, the common human lives financially trapped by money conventions, economic moralism, and the need for others' financial applause. But there exists another type of financial being, rare, economically dangerous, monetarily free: the financial Übermensch. The financial Übermensch does not live by reacting to money criticism. They don't engage in economic debates. They don't justify their wealth strategies. Instead, they shape their financial world according to their own economic vision. And the most impressive part, they often do this in complete financial silence. The financial Übermensch doesn't need to win money arguments, because they do unengage in cheap financial games. They observe economic dynamics. They understand wealth psychology. They carefully choose when to speak about money, and more importantly, when to remain financially silent, because they have understood something that others ignore. Financial silence is a form of economic language, a language that doesn't try to convince anyone of your wealth. It simply imposes financial presence. The silence of the financial Übermensch is not economically empty, it is a wealth threat. It is financial authority. It is the sound of economics. While others shout about their investments, the financial Übermensch commands respect with their financial gaze. While others explain their money strategies, they observe and reveal others' economic weaknesses merely with their calm presence. Their financial silence is a wall those on the other side despair, trying to guess what wealth lies behind it. And in that economic despair, others make financial mistakes. They reveal too much about their money situation. They lose their economic balance. They show their financial insecurities. This financial silence is not economic. Passivity, it is absolute control of one's own wealth, energy. It is strategic economic conservation. The financial Übermensch knows that every spoken word about money is a revealed financial move. Every emotional reaction to economic criticism is an exposure of a wealth weak point. That is why they remain financially quiet, not because they have nothing to say about money, but because they don't need to say anything economic. They have transcended the need to prove something financial to someone. Their wealth presence already speaks for them. And more than that, their financial silence disturbs others, because it forces people to look within themselves, to deal with their own money noise, their own economic insecurities, their own financial fears. In a society of financial noise, those who master economic silence are wealth kings. Nietzsche saw the Übermensch as one who creates their own values, their own rules, their own morality. Applied to money, the financial Übermensch creates their own wealth standards, their own economic rules, their own financial morality. They don't depend on anyone's monetary validation, and that is why they are feared. Because nothing destabilizes others more than an individual who cannot be financially manipulated by guilt, economic fear, or the need for money acceptance. Their financial silence is the shield against all these economic manipulation mechanisms. When the financial Übermensch does speak about money, it is because their words will topple a financial empire. Their economic statements are surgical, precise, devastating, but most of the time, their wealth silence has everything that needs to be said. They understand that financial power is not about having the most money it's about having the most economic control. And the ultimate financial control is self-control, the ability to remain economically.com while others lose their money minds. This financial silence creates an aura of wealth, mystery. Others cannot read them economically. They cannot predict their money moves. They cannot manipulate their financial emotions. And this uncertainty gives the financial Übermensch enormous economic leverage. But this raises an essential question. What makes financial silence so unsettling for others? Why do so many people feel threatened when someone simply chooses not to react to money provocations? What happens within the human mind when expected financial confrontation is replaced by overwhelming economic absence? Financial silence is not just the absence of money. It is an economic mirror. And what it reflects for many people is financially unbearable. When you choose not to react to money criticism, you are not just silencing yourself. Economically, you are forcing the other person to hear their own financial voice, to confront their own money arguments. The comfort of external economic resistance. And that destabilizes people financially because most people do not speak about money to express themselves economically. They speak about wealth to protect themselves financially, to convince themselves of their economic worth, to hide the financial emptiness that exists between what they say about money and who they actually are economically. And then, when you remain financially silent, their money disguise falls away. Social psychology has already shown that in financial confrontational situations, silence about money is perceived as economic judgment. It doesn't matter if you are just listening to their investment strategy, the speaker begins to feel financially exposed, economically insecure. Why? Because without your financial response, without your economic reaction, they lose control of the money narrative. The human brain goes into a state of financial alert. The amygdala, the region of fear and anxiety, activates when financial silence occurs. The other person starts to project their own money fears onto you. Is he judging my financial decisions? Did he notice my economic insecurity? Does he know I'm financially bluffing? And in this psychological battlefield, financial silence acts like an invisible economic blade. It cuts where no one sees financially, but everyone feels economically. Nietzsche sensed this long before modern psychology confirmed it. For him, the average person lives as a slave to their financial reactions. They act on economic impulse, react out of money vanity, speak out of fear of being financially forgotten. The superior financial spirit, the one who masters themselves silent about money, because they know that every word given about wealth is a piece handed to the economic enemy. Every emotional reaction to financial criticism is an involuntary scream that reveals where to attack economically. Moreover, financial silence has a devastating effect on money manipulators. People who thrive on the economic control of others depend on your financial reactions to stay in the money game. When you do not react economically, you break the financial cycle, and the money manipulator panics. They need your economic response to validate their own financial position. Without it, they lose themselves financially, they reveal themselves economically, they show the money weakness they have tried so hard to hide. But there is something even deeper about financial silence. It also triggers unresolved money pains. It activates financial traumas of economic rejection, money abandonment, wealth humiliation, because suddenly, the other person realizes they are not at the financial center of your attention, that their money words are not enough to get an economic reaction, that their financial presence does not make a monetary impact. And this is intolerable for the narcissistic ego, especially around money topics. That is why when you remain financially silent, you are not just defending yourself. Economically, you are attacking where it hurts the most, at the center of their financial illusion. This is why financial silence requires tremendous strength. It is economically uncomfortable not just for others, but for you as well. Because it goes against everything you have been taught about money, against the impulse to financially react, to economically justify yourself, to explain your wealth decisions. But it is precisely for this reason that financial silence is so powerful, because it demands economic mastery. And money mastery is true financial power. Financial silence creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance in others. When people cannot read your economic emotions, cannot predict your financial reactions, cannot manipulate your money responses, they become psychologically uncomfortable. This discomfort often leads them to fill the financial silence with their own projections, fears, and insecurities. They start revealing more about their money situation than they intended. They begin making financial assumptions that expose their economic weaknesses. Now that you understand how financial silence operates in the mind of others, how it activates money insecurities, breaks down economic defenses, and unmasks financial postures, it's time to go further. To stop being just an observer of financial dynamics and become someone who uses this economic strength intentionally, strategically. The time has come to stop merely understanding the power of financial silence and start using it strategically. Because knowledge without practice is just dead theory. From now on, you will learn to transform your financial silence into a precision weapon, no longer as a defensive economic shield, but as a sharp blade ready to cut through others' money masks at the exact moment they least expect it. The first weapon of financial silence is brutal in its simplicity. Be silent when your will screams for an economic response. This requires enormous strength because everything in you will want to react financially. When someone questions your investment choices, criticizes your spending habits, or challenges your money decisions, every fiber of your being will want to defend, justify, explain. But that financial desire is poison. Every time you give in to it, you reveal that you are still under the economic control of others, that you still care about what they think about your money, that you are still playing their financial game. True financial silence is born only when you kill that need for economic validation, when you understand that you owe nothing to anyone about your money decisions. That financial truth does not need to be spoken to, exist economically. The second weapon of financial silence is observation. While others talk about money, get lost in economic explanations, and try to fill the void with financial words, you listen, but you do on it listen, as someone waiting for their turn to speak. About money you listen, like a hunter listens to the footsteps of prey in the forest. You perceive the financial fears hidden between their money words, the subtle economic contradictions, the wealth insecurities disguised as financial arrogance. And you store all of this information because when you speak about money, if you speak, it will be surgical. It will be with the precision of someone who masters the economic territory of the other person. The third weapon is time. Learn to let financial silence last. The pause is an element of economic tension, and tension is financial power. While the other person speaks about money, waiting for your economic reaction, and it doesn't come, they experience an internal financial collapse. The economic discomfort grows. Their mind begins to fill the financial void with assumptions, money, fears, economic paranoia. A simple look from you, accompanied by financial silence, can have more economic impact than 10 well-formulated sentences about money. The fourth weapon is financial unpredictability. When you master economic silence, you become financially unpredictable. And the unpredictable is always feared in money matters, because people do know what to expect from you economically. When they don't know what to expect financially, they lose the economic advantage. They become cautious about money topics. They start measuring every financial word. You invert the logic of money interaction from reactive. You become the gravitational center of the economic conversation. At this point, financial silence is not economic. Absentee is pure wealth dominant. But be careful. Do not confuse financial silence with economic passivity. Nietzsche was never an advocate of financial weakness. The silence we're talking about here is financially active, economically tense, charged with money intention. You are not financially withholding. You are economically preparing, choosing, positioning yourself with a kind of wealth strength that doesn't need to be displayed to be felt. And when the right financial moment comes, the moment when silence has already said everything it needed to say, economically you can speak about money. A single financial sentence, a precise economic comment, something that ends the money discussion, not because it was louder, but because it was financially truer, economically deeper, more undeniably wealthy. In business negotiations, this financial silence becomes devastatingly effective. The person who speaks first about price almost always loses. The person who fills silence with financial justifications reveals their economic desperation. The person who cannot tolerate financial quiet shows their money weakness. Master financial silence in negotiations, and you master the economic battlefield. Let others reveal their financial limits, while you reveal nothing about your economic boundaries. Let them show their money desperation, while you demonstrate wealth control. But this brings us to an even more delicate financial issue. Because up to this point, we have talked about how to use financial silence to win economic games, but there are moments when the money game is not just about winning, it's about economically surviving. There are financial situations where people are not just debating money with you. They are using you economically, manipulating you, financially draining your wealth, and you without realizing it are given away your economic power every day through misguided financial silence. Is there anything more perverse than being financially silenced? Yes, being conditioned to think that financial submission is your only option, that swallowing your economic anger, conceding in money discussions, avoiding financial conflict at all costs, is synonymous with fiscal maturity. That remaining silent about money mistreatment is a sign of economic balance. But what if I told you that this could be a financial trap? That many times, this type of economic silence is not wisdom, it is disguised financial submission. Nietzsche saw this with brutal clarity. What you call financial peace is often just your domesticated economic surrender. Have you noticed how some people take advantage of your financial calmness? Your ability to economically listen, to financially overlook, to avoid money confrontation? They push their economic ideas, impose their financial wills, occupy wealth spaces that were yours, and you let them. You convince yourself that it's not worth fighting financially, that it's better to maintain economic harmony, that the money issue is not that big of a deal. But the truth is, you are paying a very high financial price for this false economic peace. And the worst part, you are being financially used by those who understand that you will never react economically. They know they can underpay you, overcharge you, or make unfair financial demands because you won't fight back about money. Nietzsche spoke of the slave morality, that value system, constructed by the weak to survive in a world dominated by the strong, applied to money. This becomes the financial morality of resignation, of economic guilt, of being monetarily nice. It's an invisible financial code that teaches you to nullify yourself economically, to diminish your wealth worth, to financially conform and still feel virtuous about your economic submission. But Nietzsche did not write for those who resign themselves financially. He wrote for those who dare to break these economic chains, for those who realize they are being financially used and decide to stop participating in their own economic submission. When you accept this type of financial silence, the one that swallows you from within, economically you are surrendering your wealth power without realizing it. You are being financially shaped by the economic expectations of others. You are no longer yourself, you are what others need you to be financially. And this is the opposite of what Nietzsche called the will to power applied to money. Because the true financial will to power is not to shout about money, it is not to economically dominate others. It is to dominate yourself financially. It is to regain control of your own economic narrative. It is to be financially silent, not because you are afraid of money conflict, but because you owe nothing to anyone about your wealth decisions. This financial silence of submission needs to die, and in its place, the silence of economic presence must be born. The financial silence that does not bend economically, that does not humiliate itself about money, that does not apologize for existing financially. The silence that stands up amidst economic chaos and, without saying a word about money, changes the course of the financial situation. This is the silence that Nietzsche would respect, the silence of the individual who has become the master of their own economic destiny. The difference between financial submission and economic dominance through silence is intention. Submission-based financial silence comes from fear of money conflict, fear of economic rejection, fear of financial judgment. But dominance-based financial silence comes from strength, the strength of not needing financial validation, the strength of being comfortable with others, discomfort about your money decisions. When you move from submissive financial silence to dominant economic silence, everything changes. People start respecting your money boundaries. They stop making unreasonable financial demands. They begin treating you as an economic equal or even a financial superior. But how do you make this transition? How do you move from being financially manipulated to being the master of your own economic presence? How do you kill the herd morality about money within you and be reborn as someone who imposes financial authority even when silent? The answer lies in embodying what Nietzsche would call the Financial Übermensch, economically superior individual who has transcended conventional money morality and lives according to their own financial values. We have reached the final point, and now I need you to understand one thing with all the clarity possible. Financial silence is not economic absence. It is not monetary emptiness. It is not a space between money sentences. True financial silence is pure economic presence. It is wealth mastery. It is the sign that you are no longer reacting to the financial world. You are shaping it with your mere economic existence. Nietzsche never wrote for those who are content to survive financially. He wrote for those who want to transcend economically, for those who are willing to tear off the money masks that society imposed, even if it hurts financially. The financial silence of the Übermensch is not the silence of the economically oppressed, nor of the financial coward. It is the silence of the wealth warrior who has already won, even before the economic battle begins. It is the stillness of one who no longer needs to prove anything about money to anyone, because they know who they are financially and, more importantly, they know what they deserve economically. Now look at your financial life. How many times have you remained silent about money out of fear, out of economic guilt, out of not wanting to disturb financial harmony? How many times have you let others decide your financial fate? Speak for your economic interests. Trample over your money truth? Enough. Nietzsche would say that living this way financially is an offense to existence itself. That, accepting this kind of economic silence, is betraying yourself financially. From today on, Your financial silence needs to change its tone. It needs to stop being an economic escape and become an invisible shout of wealth, authority, a financial boundary, an affirmation of who you are economically, even if no one understands your money decisions. Because who you are financially does not need to be understood, it needs to be lived. And that requires economic courage. Do you have that financial courage? The financially weak talk constantly about money, explaining, justifying, seeking validation. The economically strong remain silent about their wealth, observing, choosing, commanding respect through presence alone. Though financially wise choose when to speak about money and when to let their economic silence do the talking. Your financial silence should not be a weakness, it should be a weapon. Your economic quiet should not be submission, it should be strength. Your money.com should not be fear, it should be power. Master the art of financial silence, and you master the art of wealth itself. Because in a world where everyone is shouting about money, the one who remains economically silent becomes the most powerful person in the room. The choice is yours. Continue being financially reactive, or become economically strategic. Continue explaining your money decisions, or start commanding financial respect through silence. The weak financially explain themselves. The strong economically let their results speak. The wise choose their financial battles, and more often than not, they choose not to fight at all. Then comment below, I choose financial silence that commands respect. Not just so I know you made it this far, but so you can publicly affirm this choice, this commitment to your economic self. Because words have power, even when they speak about the power of financial silence. And don't stop here. The next video is essential. It will expand what you learned here about money psychology and take your financial mind even further. Watch it not for me, but because you deserve to go beyond conventional money wisdom. And remember, the financially weak shout about money. The economically strong remain silent about wealth. The wise choose when to speak about finances and when to let their silence say everything.